August 4th, 2022, NASDAQ futures, morning impression. Let's just take a quick look at what's going on. And hopefully we can get kind of an unfiltered, unbiased kind of impression this morning. Looking at the 10-minute chart, well above that 5 DMA. We got another channel that we're working with here. Is that the best looking channel you ever seen? I don't know. We did see a little bit of selling a couple of days ago, and that's where that 2-hour divergence came in. I'll show that in a second, but I'd really like to get a clearer channel to work with just on the lower time frame. Are we going to get what we're looking for? We're looking for a decent control price here. Is that good on the 125? Is that good on the control? Doesn't look wonderful for a control price. This 10-minute chart is a little bit more difficult to get a working. Let's bring in the other chart and just see what we got on there, because that one made a little bit more sense. Tagging these sometimes is morning impressions. Let's go. What do we see? Okay, so we have shifted around the channel a little bit. We were operating in a different channel. We came outside that channel, so let's establish a new channel. That looks good. Does the 125 make sense on the upper and the lower? It sort of does here. Just to give our chart some structure. So we have broken back into the 1.25 after that flare up to the 325. One session leading to the next. I'm just the facts here, right? One session leading to the next. Does this indicator always give us a pretty darn good look so far as divergences with this method that I've been researching lately? That is professional buying indicator. One session leading into the next. This didn't look like much of a divergence going on here. But did we have a different sort of divergence? One session into the next was, should we be searching for bullish divergences at this point, or shopping for bullish divergences even on the lower time frames? Yeah, I think so. I think we're in a different market, and we need to change our attitude here in the decision-making process. So, especially when it comes to divergences, we've been operating in a heavy seller's market, fear-based market, or whatever you want to call it, panic selling, blah, 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 blah. And we're looking at this confluence once again. So we're staring down a bullish confluence once again. 125 on the channel, 5 DMA, anchored volume weighted average price from the pivot. So from this swing high to this low before the run. So I'll be looking at this, and I think that that's where buyers would be looking too, at that anchored volume weighted average price. So if we're just ordering this in terms of importance here, this is another area that I would be interested in if I was going to be a buyer. Do I want to be a seller up here? I don't want to be on the short side in this market, even with this. So our 2-hour divergence was really showed up here. Our bearish 2-hour divergence showed up in this area, and we did get some selling. So I think that 2-hour bearish divergence, which has been helpful in the bearish market, didn't really indicate the magnitude of which the selling would occur. So if we get into some morning impression, I would wait. I would wait to see what's going to happen around those two pivots. There's nothing saying that the price correction won't get a good head start here, but I mean, I pulled that chart off, but I'm going to pull it back on here. We cleared out this high. It's just kind of like a quick, immediate test on that control price right there, and away we went. I mean, this market is just really strong right now, and everybody's gaga for the NASDAQ. And there's just a tremendous amount of money probably flowing in this market, so it's going to do what it's going to do. But so far as indicators go, we are seeing a little bit of a divergence from one session into the next that would indicate that this might sell off a little bit in the morning. Would I trust that to just hang on to a short position? Probably not. I would probably be looking for a better buying opportunity down here near these three confluences. That would be a little bit more appealing, especially with the way that things have been going lately. So let's look at that 2-hour divergence that showed up. So this is the 2-hour divergence that showed up the other day, and so while it did indicate that there was some distributive presence here, this didn't get the magnitude that it usually does on these bearish divergences. So previously with bearish divergences on the 2-hour, we got a higher order of magnitude when the selling started, but we did not get that here, and we're still getting a decent sized divergence even in here. So that makes me really cautious as a buyer up in this area, particularly around this 325. Now, I've had to redraw this channel. I've drawn this channel twice on the 2-hour. I think the 2-hour, you could go probably any time frame, right? 1 hour, 2 hour, whatever it is. This is pretty indicative of the direction of the trend at this point. So I've had to revisit this 1.25 deviation from the control price. And why have I done that? Why did I redraw this? I mean, this 125 looked really good to me, but I didn't like the control price. I said, did this control price make a lot of sense to me? I think the 125 from the control price looked pretty good on both sides. We had some really decent touches. We had 225 that looked pretty darn good too. I've just revisited this channel, and it looks, you wouldn't believe how different this looks on the regression channel from taking the pivot just from this area down to this area. The control price shifts significantly. So I'm going to take a look at that. We're going to take a look at that OBV one here with this tab. So redrew the control price here, the channel, to find the control price. So immediately 1.25, 1.25, 225. Does this 125 make a lot more sense? And does the control price make a lot more sense? Is this doubting or it's just readjusting? So I like to do this, right? Here's the control. So we brought that pivot back here. Here's the second pivot to draw the control price, and I like probably 2 to 3 really good pivots to work with, right? So we had this 1, 2, 3 look good, and you can even go 1, 2, 3 on this to get a really decent channel to work with. So now with this redraw, does this control price make a lot more sense than the other drawn control price? So 125, 125, 125, 125, 125, probably 225, 125, 125 going on in here. This probably looks like, no, that is your 225 there. So this is 225. The 125 on the channel doesn't make nearly as much sense to me, although we've got some good price action around those area. But looking at the control prices, the control price make a heck of a lot more sense than on the previous channel, which would indicate that we're not up near the 3.25 on the channel. We're at the 125. So Decent control, decent control, really good control, really good control, really good control again. I think this control price makes a little bit more sense. And I think the 125s probably make a little bit more sense, but maybe even the 225. That being said, strong over control price. It's 7:31, which means 9:30 Eastern time. So this aside, are we going to get a little bit of selling today? And do I have any reason to suspect that we would be getting a little bit of selling today or a price correction today? 2 hour has magnitude on the professional buying indicator. We did get a little bit of selling, but now we're still diverting here, even with. I mean, the market continues to push higher with these divergences. So patience, I suppose. I mean, we're going to get a little bit of selling this morning and get another opportunity to be a buyer when, boy, I'd really love to see this below that zero line. Is usually a better. So divergence popped up here, and we're well below that zero line, indicating some selling. Same thing here. We've got a decent sized divergence that was happening, got below that zero line, and then that was confirmation that we were in a good leg on the divergence. But so far on the 2 hour, betting against the buyers is, especially in this trend, has not been a good idea. Do I think it can come down to the 125 on this chart? Um, and that anchor and the 5-day moving average? Yeah, yeah. I don't know how many times have we seen that before? So I don't think buyers are ready to give up on this chart, but I would feel better about being a buyer down near the 5 DMA than being a buyer up here. Such was the case in yesterday's session as well. So we didn't get a video out for yesterday's session, but we had a nice anchor from the pivot. So pivot from swing to swing, anchored volume and average price. Bulls. I mean, the direction of all the anchors and the 5-day moving average were all looking really good. Just didn't look like buyers were ready to give up on this. So even with this divergence, one session leading to the next, which doesn't hold the most weight with me on the 10-minute chart, would indicate a little bit of retracing here today. So I'll be looking in this area once again. And I think we already spoke about this one session leading into the next divergence that we had here. So I mean, barely ticked the low. Price is making a lower low. One session into the next. Buying indicator is professional buying indicator is indicating a bullish divergence that was here. We did see some movement. One session leading into the next, not even close on the divergence. I mean, they were pretty equal. So from one session into the next, not a real bearish divergence happening there, and now we're going one session into the next, but we do have a bearish divergence. So this market is really strong, and I think the mentality or being wrapped up in the previous market segment, seller's market is. I think we need to get out of that mindset and start shopping for bullish divergences. Bearish divergences just seem to be a little bit more dangerous these days as an intraday trader. Obviously, it look quite a bit different for you swing traders, but market's up at this point. So with the redraw, 1.25, control looks good if we don't break out of there. Here's what the previous 2-hour chart looked like. The control price just didn't look great, right? It didn't look great, but I liked the 1.25 deviation from the control price, but it just didn't look. Sometimes I feel like it's just so much more important to have a better control price than a 1.25 deviation, because your deviations, your 1.25 deviation from the control price, those 125s are dependent on the control, right? So if you have a bad control, then you don't have great deviations. This 2-hour chart would indicate how unbelievably strong this trend is presently, well above the control price and up near the 325. This doesn't look wonderful as a control price. It doesn't look great. And there's a very fine line between where those two pivots start to create the channel, but I'm going to be down on the 10-minute today. That's the morning impression. Final thoughts. God, I don't really trust. I don't really trust being on the short side. So I'll be waiting for something that looks like a good confluenced, uh, bid rather than get on the ask side. So I'll be looking for longs unless something shows up, and maybe we can even just take a look at the daily too and the valuation to see what's going on. So here's our weekly valuation, and we may have said this in the Discord channel, but commercial interest, I mean, I don't know how. They always appear to be on the wrong side, right? So, when we were in this area, commercial interest was net short. Probably would have called it crazy, but commercials on the 26-week index were decidedly net short here at the top. They were getting bullish in this area. This is where they started getting bullish. You saw a little bit of movement, but commercials are selling heavy right now on the NASDAQ on the weekly. This is one thing that would be concerning to me. So Larry Williams' sentiment index is really high right now. So, the public is very, very bullish on the NASDAQ, but has that been a good time to do a little bit of selling if you're a big player? And we can just take a quick look at that right now. Was it smart to be a buyer when the sentiment index was as high as it was? So overbought, high sentiment index, but not overly high. So really high on the sentiment index. Well, this may be an analysis for another day. Because this is getting outside the morning impressions. I think we're definitely getting outside the morning impressions. We're going to have to revisit this chart, but this is where commercial interests are. This is where the WPR is on the weekly. Let's look at the professional buying right now. No real divergence just showing up here. Hard to bet against buyers at this point in time, but okay, we need to get into a position at some point, so we're just going to wrap this up, and it's a lot longer than it usually is, but hopefully we got some decent sized morning impressions here. Not the moment of clarity that I was looking for, but there it is. Thanks for tuning in. Discord's listed in the description if you want to stop by and talk charts, speculate with the rest of us. And thank you for tuning in. This is journal style. It's my digital journal, so thank you very much for tuning in.